Yeah. Oh. Come on.
David Johnson! Oh, David Johnson! David Johnson!
Wow, come on. I hope everyone is singing along in the car.
Yeah!
How many wives are upset right now?
Come on, David.
The answer is none.
Because they all played David Johnson, too.
They all play David Johnson too.
This week's championship brought to you by David Johnson.
Oh, it is a beautiful thing.
Whoa.
We've never introed the show that way because
It had to
David
happen.
Johnson's never done that before. That was
Oh, it's
beautiful.
back.
Yeah, I almost put it back on there. That was a beautiful thing, a beautiful sight. Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. And if you're joining us for the first time,
You have no idea what's going on.
but that's okay. It's week 16, so you're just getting a sneak peek into next year. This is the Monday show. We are fresh off a slate of week 15 playoff games, and man, is that intense. Fantasy football playoffs are intense. You can feel it. You can feel the pulse
Yeah.
through Twitter.
So much
Yes.
celebration and so much disappointment. That it's out of your hands. And this is like that 1 week. You got AJ Green who goes down, gets pulled out of the game. You got McCoy. Those players are just don't get hurt on week 15 or 16.
Oh, it is a tough thing because during the regular season, it's easier to just brush off the loss that you didn't expect, but in the playoffs, it kills you. But there are a lot of people who sent us box scores with the David Johnson line, and some of the games were so close.
Oh, man.
It was like I won by 3, and David Johnson scored 47 for me.
There
So it was
was-
like, can you imagine being the other owner? There are other people out there right now that not
That got
every
David
listener,
Johnson?
not every listener on our show has David Johnson. Somebody else beat him to him in some leagues.
There was one tweet that came in, and the total box score of this tweet, it must have been like a 2-week playoff matchup because it was like 255 to 256, and the guy beat him by 1 point with 46 points from David Johnson. So
I
you have
saw
to
that.
think if you're the other guy, oh, you got this locked up. David Johnson would have to go for 46 points.
It's crazy. We'll go over all of that, by the way, on today's show. We got the Fantasy Rewind, our Stud Muffins, our Pooped, which we'll be talking about those guys in the fantasy context for next week, and there's some big-time news that might affect your lineups for the championship week. Some of you are already in that championship matchup as well, so we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Oh,
Sorry
this
about
is
that,
true. I have my team, which
Hey, kudos to
the
you.
Cameron Artist Pains is my team name. It was funny because I posted our lineup between us, and most people said you have no chance because of Cameron Artist Pain, which is true. I didn't.
He had a pretty good game. Best out of all of your options on the waiver, so good job.
Better than Fozzie. So we've got a Monday night preview today. We've got the mailbag. We've got our congratulations to Jason for beating me and heading to the title in our League of Records.
Still need one more victory, though. It's not over.
Well, we'll get to it, but you might get some help from the league, the NFL.
Yeah, yes.
That might punish a certain naughty boy who's getting a
Getting coal in his stocking for sure.
seriously from Josh Norman. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers. If you want to follow myself, it's at Andy Holloway. You can follow Jason at JasonFFL. You can follow Mike at FF Hitman. You can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, see our weekly rankings, see the show archive, catch up on everything that we've got going on. You can find links to merchandise. You can find our free app, the Wheel of Water app. I hope some people got watered this weekend after their bets, and we've got a lot of good stuff on there. Check us out on Facebook, on the Fantasy Sports Network, and on YouTube as well. So I know you guys already know the answer to this, but so let me put it this way. Would you have thought Cam Newton, Kirk Cousins, Teddy Bridgewater, and Brock Osweiler would be your playoff championship quarterbacks?
One of those
One of
things is not like the other.
Or, yeah.
Yes,
Apparently, for Cam.
yes, you needed to start all of the guys who have been not playoff fantasy options this year, and you would have been fine. The nice thing, though, is, I mean, I know we had a couple people be like, oh, no, I didn't start Kirk because you guys didn't like him. And, of course, he exploded. But most leagues, you weren't going up against these three guys. You know what I mean? Unless you're in a 2-quarterback league.
You might have been making the decision. We had somebody making the Tyrod Taylor, Kirk Cousins decision. It looked really bad for a while. Tyrod kind of came back.
He finished as the number 5.
No, we got Kirk wrong. I mean,
Yeah,
Kirk
for sure.
came out and played well, and honestly, the Bills look like the Jets under Rex Ryan, like a team that just occasionally fell apart, undisciplined, pre-snap penalties, can't play defense. Problem with Mario Williams now. I mean, just not what I expected. And the news came out before the game that they're not letting Kirk Cousins walk. He's either getting franchised or a long-term deal. And then he went out and he said, "You like that?"
Yeah. Now, next week in the championship, so let me ask you guys, Kirk Cousins playing the Eagles, who have been giving it up through the air.
That's pretty good as far as a streamer.
When you have Deshaun Jackson playing at the level he's playing, Jordan Reed contributing in
Yes,
the ways
Rule
contributing.
86. Put a
And they-
shellacking.
And this is it is a divisional game. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if the Eagles went out, am I wrong? They are in the playoffs.
They
think-
control their destiny.
This is a division. If you win this game, you win the division, right?
No.
That's not how it works?
No, because
No.
technically the New York Giants can still win.
Oh. I know if Washington wins, they win the division.
That makes sense.
I know that.
That makes sense
And
because
if-
they would win. They'd have the tiebreaker. They're already a game up on everybody. But Philadelphia, I guess they must play
If they
Washington
win that
and the
game
Giants, right?
and they lose the second game, which would be against the Giants,
Yeah.
and the Giants win this week,
Yeah,
then
so
Giants win.
anyways, divisional game, so I'm not going to hyperbolically state
Right.
Kirk Cousins' value is my point. But, hey, he's playing good. That team is showing up. The game's in Philadelphia, so
The most gut-wrenching name on that list for me is my man Brock Osweiler, because I streamed him last week when I was still alive in our playoffs, because that was the game I was hoping to get.
well, he played very good in the first half.
Oh, he played terrible in the second half. But
well, and shoulder injury to boot.
yeah,
so
that's fair. But the first half, there was nothing he could do wrong. It was just touchdowns and touchdowns.
I think that the Chiefs will win the division because the Chiefs have two very
That's
easy
hot.
matchups in the
That's
next
hot
2
take.
weeks. So I think the Chiefs will be at 11 wins, and the Broncos have to play Cincinnati next week, and I think they lose it, and the tiebreaker goes to the Chiefs. So we'll see what happens there. Let's get into the rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
Now, obviously, there's a big game tonight, the Saints and the Lions. A lot of fantasy players are counting on guys from that matchup. It's not a matchup that's absent of, the Cooks and Stafford and Breeze and Hightower and a bunch of big names and Calvin, which we'll see what he does tonight. But here's the big news. The first piece that I alluded to, Schefter is reporting this morning that Odell Beckham Jr. is likely to be suspended one game.
Likely.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So week 15 against Norman, just a mental,
Unraveling.
almost like a childlike tantrum. I mean, just he made a huge drop, and then it got in his head, and Norman got into his head, and he acted like a kid, and then he tried to
Kill Josh Norman.
hurt Josh Norman, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people who love Odell Beckham Jr. who kind of lost a lot of respect for him, watching him be this self-centered, selfish baby that really lost control. And I'm going to forgive him because that happens. He's still in his sophomore year.
Fantasy forgiveness.
Well, here's the deal. This news, whether or not he's suspended, affects so many people because Odell Beckham Jr. over the second half of the year has been unbelievably good, meaning he has a lot of people in the title game, and people that are going to the title game who don't have him are facing him, a la me.
And the value of one Eli Manning would take a monster dump.
Nosedive.
So I agree. I don't know about likely suspended.
He can appeal the suspension.
You still have that whole process.
That will all get sorted out, though, quickly, in my opinion.
I highly doubt that he's suspended this week. And let's say this: this is a big all eyes on the NFL. The Giants are the Sunday night prime time game.
Uh-huh.
Will they suspend possibly the biggest star in that game as of right now?
I think they will suspend him. He will appeal. He will play and be suspended later.
I think he's going to get just a big fine.
We'll see. It is pins and needles for all the ODB owners and those playing ODB. I mean, the guy put together a second half that probably, to his mind, justified his behavior. I mean, honestly, that's what happens with hyper-talented guys sometimes. He goes out and he basically almost wins the game. A humongous comeback. One of the best games I've seen all year. All right, injury news. Adrian Peterson, sprained ankle against the Bears. What do we expect from that injury?
He left the game right before the half. He did come back in, but he was not very effective. We saw Jerick McKinnon turn into the screen master. He was just dominant catching the ball. So that's interesting moving forward regardless. But for Peterson, I would expect him to play. I haven't heard anything about it being a high ankle sprain, so it'll be a tape it up.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to
shot.
come back in the game if it was too bad of an ankle sprain. And we have to remember he has Wolverine blood. He heals like nobody else. So I expect him to be back this next week. I expect both Odell Beckham Jr. and Adrian Peterson to play. I'm hoping against both of them as the person in the championship plays because I'm a selfish man.
Well, let's keep the focus on the big context. Marcus Mariota sprain is the word, probably out for the rest of the year. He said he's probably out for the rest of the year. They'll just keep him out as a precaution. No reason to hurt your franchise quarterback. LaShawn McCoy, knee injury. They're saying MCL sprain day-to-day on McCoy. You're going to have to monitor that. We'll keep you in the know about McCoy for this upcoming week. He obviously was one of many candidates for destroyer of your dreams this week.
And it looked worse than if he's walking out with just a sprain, then you got to be really happy.
He seems to be capable of this, where he just never suffers the devastating injury, but he's had like 5 knee injuries this year, it feels like, where they're just sprains or strains and he comes back.
Well, it was the hamstring earlier.
Well, no, but there was a knee too.
Yeah, but his legs are.
I'm just saying he doesn't go down. He hasn't gone down for big injuries.
He has gelatin-like legs.
There was news on Saturday afternoon, I believe, about AJ Green and an updated injury report with his back, and then he ended up going out in this game and being held out the rest of this game. And so AJ Green was another guy that really killed people this week.
Twitter kind of tilted when all that news was starting to come out of like he's questionable to play, and then you have some other people jump in once he's out there like, man, that report was such crap. I don't know why we're spreading this around. And then he leaves the game with a back injury. You're like, Twitter, who do I believe?
Yeah, it's very scary, and your head starts spinning when that bits of news comes in, and you don't know what to do, and it's hard to make the right decision. Danny Amendola is another guy. If you played him, 1 catch, a fumble, hurt, you're gone. Ouch.
But yeah, that was brutal. That's he got the only thing that can be worse than a 0, and that is negative.
Yeah. Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey went down again, this time with a hamstring problem. He caught, I believe, 1 pass for a touchdown. So if you played him, you weren't destroyed by him.
Wait, it was his hamstring, not his calf?
Correct.
Dude, that guy's legs are a mess. I mean, because it was the calf keeping him out of practice this week, and now the hamstring, his quad is about to blow.
It's the whole leg, all of it.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. It just moves up and down.
Really hard to trust him this next week in a championship match. We've just seen him actually hampered on the field too many times this year.
Melvin Gordon injured.
Yeah, you know who was not injured?
Danny Woodhead. I need to publicly apologize.
Do you?
To someone, yes.
Do you really?
I do. I absolutely need to.
All right,
because
go ahead.
We had made the joke last week that Danny Woodhead was retired because even though he was so great at the beginning of the year, they have forgotten to use him. And so someone tweeted asking me CJ Anderson or Danny Woodhead. And
But listen to this line, Jason. Danny Woodhead, 8 carries for 10 yards.
That's no good. I was right to say CJ Anderson.
Oh, wait a second. 6 for 50 and 3 touchdowns through the air, and he scored on those 8 carries on the ground.
Yeah, so he was really good this week. Hope you played him.
Here's his last 5 weeks. 2.7, 8.1, 5.2, 3.1, 34.
Yeah, there's no way that you had any confidence playing him. I know that some people out there had him.
That's a painful decision though if you went CJ.
But it's more of a Chargers management, what are you doing? What have you been doing for 5 weeks?
Well, if Gordon is out now, if for any reason he's not able to get back next week, that gives you more confidence to play him. They're playing the Raiders on this championship week coming up. So Raiders have been really good against the run, but Danny Woodhead really makes his value in the air. So I think he'd be an okay play if Gordon's out.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those days for Danny Woodhead. I don't know. Do we know the implications of the injury for Gordon?
No.
We don't know yet,
no,
right? Because I haven't seen anything other than the fact he was just downgraded to out in the second half with a knee injury. So left knee.
I will take a look right now and see if
you find anything else, just so people know. More for the Woodhead owner. I don't know if a lot of people are counting on Gordon in the playoffs.
Left knee injury.
Yeah.
He went down on a draw play, and there's no update yet.
Another guy, big start of the week this week, Ted Ginn Jr. had 2 more touchdowns. Did go out of the game with an injury for a little while, came back in later, monitor him. TJ Yates tore his ACL and also got me watered because I bet him versus McCarron, I think.
I'll let you off the hook on that one.
Because of the injury?
And
All
McCarron
right.
didn't do that great anyways.
That's appreciated.
Yeah.
But I'm not letting you off the hook on the Lamar Miller carries.
That's
bet.
fine. No, I deserve water on me. And actually, Lamar Miller and the coaching staff deserve water on them more than anyone. So we should take a look at who our fantasy stud muffins are, who our pooped in the big boy pants are. But first, we'd like to thank the sponsor of today's show, PokerStars.net. If you haven't started playing PokerStars.net, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's a fun, free game. It's super easy to get started. Go to PokerStars.net. You just click the button, install the software. All you need is an email address, and you can do it on your computer. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your iPad. You can do it on your Android device. So wherever you go, and it's free. You can win prizes, play for free as long as you want. You start with 1,000 chips, and it reloads for free a couple times an hour. So it is really, truly the biggest game in town for poker. By far margins, the largest poker site in the world. So if you enjoy poker, easy to do everywhere. Go and sign up at PokerStars.net. Get 1,000 play chips for free to get you started right now.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, we're going to go through the big performances of the week and give you the headlines and let you know whether you can keep playing these guys next week in your title game. Flash in the pan this week or here to stay? Obviously, Cam Newton. What can you even say about him? We pretty much need to say nothing other than he's going to be in your lineup next week against Atlanta.
Yeah, you can't sit Cam Newton at all. He has been the best quarterback on the year. He might. I'm curious who's got higher between him and Brady on the year, but I think it's got to be Cam at this point.
At this point, it has to be Cam.
So,
I mean, 33 touchdowns through the air on the year, rushing the ball well, just an incredible season, and really showed me a lot.
Yeah, he is the MVP this year. I mean, if you put a different quarterback on that team, they couldn't run that same style of offense because not only did he have the 5 touchdowns through the air, but 100 yards on the ground. And those were important third down pickups where third and long, and you see him rushing right up the middle, sliding for that first down marker, keeping the drives alive. That's why their offense is so potent. And Ted Ginn Jr., who was the start of the week, did you see his drop again?
Yep.
Oh, I mean,
I did not.
Another touchdown.
It was another one where he has just
bomb?
burned him, a bomb, turns around and gets to
It's
gets
hard
the
to
punt
catch
return,
when you're
catch
running
it.
that fast. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you're running,
That's my point. He had slowed down and turned around, and his back was to the end zone, and he just gets to.
do you think at this point he's saying in his, I can do this. I can do
Yes,
this.
every time.
I can do it.
Don't drop it. Don't drop it.
And
Don't
the
drop it.
trouble
Don't
is,
drop it.
If he catches 50% of the easy bombs, he's a great play.
No doubt about it. I mean, and I think Newton is a better discussion for Dynasty and Keeper Leagues too because, this season began with Kelvin Benjamin being lost. You draft Devin Funchess, who's becoming more and more involved in the game plan. Moving forward for years to come, I don't see a reason why Cam Newton won't provide this kind of value, assuming he can stay healthy. That will always be the risk with him. That being said, he's a very big guy. I trust his – it's like Kaepernick. I trust those two guys to not get hurt running the ball.
Yeah, Devin Funchess is going to when Devin
Kelvin
Funchess
Benjamin.
when Kelvin Benjamin gets back, Ted Ginn Jr. is only going to get more open on those deep plays.
It's just a lot of great – and, Greg Olsen, a one-hand catch a week. So – Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Teddy Bridgewater, Brock Osweiler.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater,
Teddy Bridgewater.
4 touchdowns. That's got to be a career high.
Oh yeah. I mean,
by about 3.
it wasn't just 4. He ran one in. He had 5
Yeah,
total
that's right.
touchdowns.
That's
So
right.
Teddy Bridgewater, man,
So is this what we could see from him if AP is limited or out?
no.
Okay,
I
just making sure. Just making sure.
I would love it because Teddy was a guy I liked coming into the year. He's been very, very disappointing for fantasy purposes. But I mean, for 17 completions, 4 of those going for touchdowns, that's it's not a very sustainable percentage there.
No. Tyrod Taylor had a big game as well in the end, thanks to Sammy Watkins, some deep balls, and then a lot of yards on the ground, 9 for 79 on the ground. Big Ben,
There you go.
he served to prove the point that if you are good enough, it doesn't really, the matchup's not going to matter as much. They were at home, 40 for 380 and 3 touchdowns, a comeback win.
We
Same
saw
with
that.
Antonio Brown.
Yeah,
That's not a big toot for the show. That's just factual. I mean, we saw Tom Brady have success against them. How many touchdowns to wide receivers in this game? 3?
Yeah. Brown had 2, and I think Wheaton had 1.
Okay, so 3. On the year, Denver had given up
I think 3 on the year.
2.
Was it?
It was 2.
I thought they gave up 2 in the second game.
I'll
but-
take a look.
And so basically, and I believe Harris, by the way, who got torched by Antonio Brown. If you started Antonio Brown, you're happy. If you benched him because you were afraid of Denver, you're
killing
as
yourself.
sad as
That's why
we would fear.
That's
2
why it's really
2 was
hard.
the answer.
That's why it's very, very difficult to actually bench your big studs, because if they do what they do normally in those matchups, you are just going to kick yourself for making such a – I mean, he had 16 catches.
Well, the
I-
questions people were asking were like, okay, Tyler Lockett or Antonio Brown?
No, and you know what I'm going to do next? I was thinking about this on the drive-in. What I want to do next year is it won't be a very scientific keeping track of stats or anything, but I want to do a kind of like a start your studs tracker and just write down the matchup of what people are scared of and the result, and then we'll see how often, more than often or not, that a stud performs in these matchups, and if there's actual evidence of should you be kind of worried about this.
Well, and you saw, I mean, not to throw everybody who would have sat him under the bus, you saw Amari Cooper last week get destroyed by the matchup. But there's a difference between Amari Cooper and Antonio Brown. There's a difference between Derek Carr and Big Ben Roethlisberger on a lot of levels. And there's so many people that are afraid of the numbers, and I understand that because Denver was so dominant. But you couldn't sit him down. I didn't have the guts to sit him down and then lose my match in that way. So if you did, I am sincerely sorry for you. Genuinely. That's not an I told you so. That's an I'm sorry because
brutal.
I understand you might have had an option that felt better. You know, there might have been an AJ
Well-
Green or Antonio Brown, and you said, you know what? Why wouldn't I just play? And if you did that, I can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
I can see it happening. Mike wouldn't have done it, but I could see it happening.
Same game, Emmanuel Sanders, and for that matter, Demaryius Thomas had a good game as well, but Emmanuel Sanders went off 10 for 181 and a touchdown. Brock Osweiler went off in that first half. He was throwing for a ton of yards the week before. So what do we make of the wide receiver core? We got a lot of teams that have these two
I hate them.
superstar wide receivers. Who do they play next week?
I hate them for dropping everything last week. But this is more of what you would expect out of a crew of Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. So who do they play
They
next
play
week?
the the Bengals.
They
play
play
themselves.
themselves. Well, yeah, it's Osweiler versus Manning.
It's a shadow match.
Uh,
Who do they play?
They play the
They'll
Bengals.
probably win. The Bengals,
It's a tough
tough
matchup.
matchup, and we don't know the quarterback situation. It could
Right.
be Peyton next week.
Yeah,
I mean-
if Brock is actually hurt, which it was his non-throwing shoulder, so we'll
He came back
monitor
in
it.
and he said he did not. He said he wasn't affected by it.
yeah, that's what
But-
they all say.
But yeah, big comeback for Pittsburgh, keeping their playoff hopes alive. Jason mentioned it, Emmanuel Sanders monster game. I think you probably play him unless you have a significantly better option. Amari Cooper, 6 for 120 and 2 against Green Bay. Huge game for him. What do we think about Amari Cooper next week?
Ooh, I mean,
He's got the Thursday night game against the Chargers.
yeah, you gotta like that situation. Crabtree did he? I don't know if he came back in the game. I know he got knocked out for concussion protocol. I can't recall if he got back in the game. But against the Chargers, that's a great matchup. You gotta love Cooper next week.
Yeah, he left briefly before halftime, but he came back out
yeah.
in the third quarter, and he was 6 for 11 for 70. Not a bad matchup, just didn't get into the end zone. Reminds me a little bit about the game we saw from Michael Floyd last night, where he played very well. That one-handed catch on the sideline was incredible, but he didn't get into the end zone, and that hurt you. Sammy Watkins.
He has been on fire.
Deep balls to Sammy Watkins work.
Yeah.
5 for 111.
He's faster than them. So next week he's going to be facing the Cowboys, whose defense has still showed up, and they are a good defense.
All their losses this year, even with the pitiful play at quarterback, have been 3 or 4
Close.
points. I mean, it's just been a tough luck year for them. Their defense has played very, very well. And we didn't talk much about it, but Darren McFadden played very, very well as well.
Well, we haven't gotten to running backs.
Oh, yeah. That's probably why we didn't talk about it. But I was still right. We hadn't. Ted Ginn Jr., 6 for 85 and 2. Jordan Matthews with a little bit of.
Oh, the garbage man can.
Well, yeah. Come on, when you're down 37-10 or 37-17 and you get a bomb over the top on a blown coverage, that's nice.
Absolutely. But he did have about, what was it, something like 50 yards in that first drive or so.
No,
Yeah.
he played well.
He did play well. He had, that one catch was worth a lot, but he had 8 other catches, 159 total yards. So, he was playing very well.
Do I have confidence in him moving
That's the
forward?
question.
No. No would be the answer. He's not a terrible play, but you can't feel confident in that.
Another guy that we have to mention yet again in our stud muffins.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
This is ridiculous.
here's his touchdowns for the last 4 weeks. 3, 2, 3, 2.
So 3 touchdowns next week for Doug Baldwin, everybody.
Unbelievable. He only had 4 catches for 45 yards, and 2 of them were once again touchdowns.
Playing the Rams. What do we make of the Rams defense? They have been great. They have been good. They have been bad. They have been terrible. Who
You
are
stay
the
in
Rams?
the flames with Doug Baldwin, and you stay in the flames with Russell Wilson.
I agree.
And the Rams are okay. But this
They're-
game's important for Seattle. They did clinch a playoff spot. Cardinals clinched the division.
And that game is in Seattle.
Yeah, it is. So I
Well,
think
the Rams, I will say this.
they like to beat the Seahawks.
The Rams historically show up against the Seahawks, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
But that's not going to make me fade Baldwin myself. Deshaun Jackson, Kamar Aiken, Mike Evans, and Tavon Austin had big-time games this week. Anybody you want to talk about from that
I
group?
want to talk about Kamar Aiken. Now,
I think that's fair.
Aiken is a guy that we really liked when Steve Smith-Sonor went down. And then he had a couple bad matchups. Well, of course, he lost his quarterback, so you faded him for that. Then he had some bad matchups, and you faded him for that. Is there, in this crazy world, is there potential that Kamar Aiken is actually just a good wide receiver?
Yeah,
Apparently.
he's shown it with different quarterbacks.
Hail
and bad
Mary catch,
matchups.
too.
That was a great play too. The way he streaked across, caught the Hail Mary in traffic, and then said, "Oh, see ya," because he wasn't in the end zone when he caught it.
This was one of those games where, Kamar Aiken was 8 for 128 and a touchdown. Kansas City's defense scored twice, kind of dominated the game, but Jimmy Clausen was fairly capable. So if he's the starter for Baltimore, he seems like he can rely on Aiken. Aiken might be an okay play. I think you might be right.
Who do they play next
Next week they play Pittsburgh at
you-
home
you
in
can-
Baltimore.
You can throw on Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, exactly. We saw that. Brock Osweiler had a very good half against Pittsburgh. Plus, they're likely to be down. There's no reason why he can't get some targets there. So, Tavon Austin was the Thursday game along with Mike Evans, who had a big monster game. Mike Evans owners, without Vincent Jackson, you can expect a lot of targets.
Yeah, target vacuum for sure.
So, running backs.
I think you got to put the music on again.
Oh, no.
Do you have it closed?
I did. I closed it down. I don't think that takes a long time to get to the crescendo.
Well, no,
level.
you wouldn't go all the way in. You would just start the music again.
Well, let's just let the audience say it. Okay, ready, set, go.
David Johnson. You said let the audience say it, and then you pointed to me, so I said it.
No, that was more like to the sky.
he was pointing to the audience.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I apologize.
All right, David Johnson, 20. The numbers bear repeating: 29 for 187, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 4 for 42 through the air, and a beast mode-esque run that was just kept going and going. First, how'd he get out of that? Oh, how'd he stiff arm that guy? Oh, how'd he get down the sideline?
If you didn't watch the game, this is one just as a football fan, you got to look up. You got to watch that play. It was unbelievable. And if you are not a math wizard and you wonder, that would be 33 touches that David Johnson got. A full bell cow.
2 things I want to say about David Johnson. One, you should check our Twitter at the FF Ballers because I posted that play along with the Bette Midler song "You're My Hero."
And Wind Beneath My Wings.
Beneath My Wings. Sorry. And 2, that game last night changed my dynasty keeper thought process on David Johnson. It showed me he can be a bell cow type back and they can lean on him, and that makes him a difference maker for the Cardinals and for fantasy owners.
Arians said after the game in an interview that he said, I don't consider him a rookie anymore. That's what he said. And that's a big deal for Arians because he treats rookies like rookies. He said earlier in the year when it's like, oh, you got 3 great guys. Who are you going to sit? He's like, oh, that's easy. We got a rookie. And he said after the game, he's like, I don't consider him a rookie anymore. And he's picked up blitz coverage. So, I mean, that's just great.
And total touchdowns on the year, you could really argue that David Johnson's been outside of, I guess, Gurley and his performances. You could say David Johnson's been the best rookie running back.
The Arizona Cardinals are a high-powered, high-scoring offense. And David Johnson, before this game, was leading them in touchdowns. I mean, that's not who you would have probably guessed. You know, you'd have been like, oh, it's Fitz or it's Michael Floyd or someone like that. And so now he's getting the opportunity that he didn't even have in the beginning of the year. Definitely a must start guy.
The last thing I'll say for David Johnson, because clearly we love him so much, but that was the highest scoring running back fantasy performance of the year according to fantasy data. So
wow.
Breaking news.
The move that we expected to happen last week, the New England Patriots have signed 3-time Pro Bowl running back Steven Johnson to the team.
What? Steven
Johnson? You just ruined that.
Steven Johnson.
You're literally reading.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
Steven Jackson.
Can we do that again? I got it.
Breaking news.
Oh, I pointed at him. I said, you take it. Steven Jackson has been signed by the New England Patriots.
He is reading it.
He's reading it right off of the news.
It's a tiny watch. Tiny watch.
It's that David Johnson,
Do dyslexic people convert Jackson to Johnson? Is that what happens?
Yep. We're gonna go with
that is.
Anyways, I think you get the gist there. Is there fantasy significance?
I don't know. I mean,
Bolden got the carries, but he didn't do anything special.
It wasn't just Bolden. It was then that guy. I don't even remember his name because we got Belichicked again.
Well, I expected that.
I think
I didn't expect Bolden to do much.
This past week, I think Steven Jackson would have been a good play. A lot of people lost running backs. Now, I don't think it's that important because
14 carries for I don't even know how to pronounce that.
Iasefa. Oh yeah, I think that's close.
Something
that's
like
close
that.
enough. But he scored, right?
Yeah,
he had a long run to score.
Yeah, last week we had a ton of players lose running backs who are still in the playoffs. If you lost too many running backs and you need a guy off of waivers to start, lower chances that you're in the championship now. And they played the Jets in this Week 16 matchup, so he did
not score. You were thinking of the James White screen. He did not score.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that running D, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Steven Jackson against the Jets in the championship week.
No, but that's interesting for their long-term kind of needs as the Patriots head into the playoffs. And it's also nice for the lore of botched breaking news. So, Devontae Freeman, Matt Forte, Rashad Jennings had big games. Char West, everybody who asked me about Char West at the end of the week, I was just rising on the guy because Spencer Ware, it looked like limited to emergency to out. And Char West had a good matchup. It just seemed like he had the potential in this game. He didn't blow the cover off of, that's more of a baseball reference. Whoops. Char West, 16 for 76 and a touchdown, 2 for 9 through the air. Okay game for him, for sure. He helped you out. Bilal Powell had a huge game.
That's worth talking about because Chris Ivory owners were very upset this week.
You think?
Yeah. You can probably speak to this better than anybody. Watching the game, the one thing you saw was that Chris Ivory wasn't on the field as often as he was the first half of the year at all, and it wasn't just when they were down. Now, obviously, once they get down and they're passing, then Bilal Powell's in. But even before that, when they were up or tied or it was a 3-point game, Bilal Powell was in there because I think they see their offense as better passing the ball than running the ball, which it is right now. Fitzpatrick has been great. And if they're passing the ball, Bilal Powell's in. And
Well,
he's
the
great.
offensive snaps were 37 snaps went to Ivory. And then Powell was on the field for 23 snaps, but he made more of those, right? He was targeted 5 times compared to Ivory's 2 targets. He was more efficient and made that touchdown run when he got it near the goal line. So, this is one of those things people, they might say, oh, my goodness, I can't believe I started Ivory. Oh, I should have started.
It was the right play.
He had a goal line carry. I mean, he got stuffed. He gets in the end zone there. It's not the he scores 11, 12 points. I mean, it's what he's been all year, but it's worth mentioning because I think you can start Bilal Powell
And
in PPR or half PPR leagues, which is what you're talking about.
We're very early, but next week the Jets take on the Patriots. Give me your thermostat level on Chris Ivory in a game against the Patriots?
I'm at about 70 degrees. It's
What's the right temperature?
well, I mean, if I'm really loving a guy, I'm gonna be up triple digits.
I got you.
I'm
So
a little
you're
cold.
at 70?
70. It's a little chilly. I'm not saying it's snowing outside.
So
but
it's nice.
You're not
It's-
saying it's snowing at 70? Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Stephen Ridley got 13 too many snaps,
Yeah, he does not look good.
and that was troublesome. So, basically, I think I would play Ivory.
All right.
That's the gist. So, Christine Michael.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way.
I snuck him on the list.
So
list.
what is there to say? I like him next week.
You at this point, you have to at least think about it. I'll put it that way. Bryce Brown actually was productive as well. We cannot overreact to a game against the Browns because if you were watching that game, the Browns' defensive scheme was that of a schoolyard football team and was just horrific.
The reason he deserves to be on this list is because of what happened game flow wise. Game flow wise, Kristen Michael was not the first guy to get the ball. They had Coleman get the ball first, which was weird, and then he didn't touch it again, after that first drive. But Bryce Brown had the first opportunity. He played okay, but in the second half, the majority of carries went to Christine Michael, and what they said after the game about his maturity, and he seems, he's acting different from the last time he was on the roster. Those are things you say when you're saying, I like this guy. He's going to be important for our team. I'm going to try to build his confidence up. So if I had to start one of these two guys, it would definitely be Kristen Michael to me.
Yeah, you're saying of Michael versus Brown?
Yeah.
Hands
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it
You saw exactly what took place in the game. By the second half, Michael had all the carries.
And he looked good. I mean, he was gashing him for 5 yards.
Yeah, and by the way, that is I believe I read the wrong snap counts on the Ivory.
Yeah.
All right. I
let's-
don't have this week's up. I couldn't find this week's. I think
I was really surprised.
somebody wrote it as week 15 in the article, and it was not week 15. So I just want to throw that out there because it didn't look that way.
No, it looked
On
like
the field.
It looked like snap count wise that Bilal Powell was out there at least as much, if not possibly more.
Anyone who has not made it this far in the podcast now is going to think you're an idiot
Me?
for giving the wrong stat.
Okay. Tight ends, Jordan Reed, 7 for 84 and 2 touchdowns. Delaney Walker, 2 for 64, 2 touchdowns.
And one of those touchdowns was amazing. Was
The-
that a
yeah, the
touchdown
Delaney
that he,
Walker
where,
play?
where he just
Oh, yes.
just bulldozed the guy? He's like, get out of here! You're smaller than me. This is
That's what he said.
yeah, that's what he said. And then he.
Okay, so fantasy implications moving forward on these guys: Jordan Reed, Delaney Walker,
Jordan Reed is
Greg Olsen,
Okay,
Zach Ertz.
Well, Jordan Reed is Rule 86. If he's healthy, you start him. He is dominant. He is dominant from the tight end position. Delaney Walker, he was a weekly start, but without Mariota, what do you think? We got the Mettenberger.
I'm fine with him.
Yeah, I am too. Mettenberger used him a lot last year. I think Mettenberger could be just as good for Delaney Walker. He is the main receiving option for the Titans. So I like Delaney Walker for sure. I would have no problem starting him.
What about Zach Ertz? He had a big game.
Now he got hurt that game, right? Or was there any long-term effect of?
No, I think he's all right. He got knocked out for a couple plays, but he got up. So assuming health, and you can monitor that. But what are your thoughts on Zach Ertz in general? Because Bradford seems to be finding himself a little bit in that offense.
Well, Ertz before the year was one of my favorite guys, and the reason why was because he was only in on about half of the snaps last year, and he showed such a great ability to catch the ball. This year he's been getting more and more involved lately. 8 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's the best tight end week you can hope for. And over the last couple weeks, he's been involved more and more. So I think you can trust him against Washington this last week if he's healthy.
42 snaps for Bilal Powell, 28 for Chris Ivory.
Whoa!
That's what I saw with my eyeballs.
Yeah. So sorry about
Whoa.
the wrong stat a minute ago, but that is the correct stat. 50% of snaps to Bilal Powell. Again, a big part of that is game flow. They were playing from behind, close game, and 2-minute drills. They had a couple 2-minute drills where
Yeah, but
Bilal Powell's on the field.
against the
so
Patriots, is it going to be any different?
probably not.
So what's your
But we don't
temperature
know. So okay, half-point PPR, Bilal Powell or Chris Ivory?
Bilal Powell?
At this point, I don't know, but you would.
Because
I'd probably-
just because the snap counts were the way they were, the carry counts weren't that way.
Well, but the reason the snap counts were that way was because they were passing the ball. How many didn't Bilal Powell catch 7 balls?
Okay, but I'm still making the point that in a standard league, you've got 13 carries for the Jets.
Well, then just worry about touches because Bilal Powell out-touched him. And
Bilal Powell did not out-touch them. They were the same on touches.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that's not true. Chris Ivory out-touched them by 1. So it's still a debate to me. It's not just because Bilal Powell has this good game. Chris Ivory's the number 6 running back in fantasy football. This is going to be another one of those situations where he could come out. If they score a little bit, he could have success against New England.
Yeah, it's game flow. So what do you believe is going to happen with the game?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what's going to happen in that game. I think it's going to be a close game. I do think that.
I agree with that. The Jets played New England very well the first time they played.
Divisional game, close game. The recipe for victory for the Jets all year has been when they run Chris Ivory. And so I would play Chris Ivory. In a full PPR, I would switch over to Powell. I'll say that based on how he's been playing.
That
'Cause
is
Powell
fair.
looks good. He looks fast. It's a very difficult decision. I'll be honest with you. It's close. All right. So defenses, Kansas City's D scored a couple times. Big week for them. Love them next week against the Browns at home again.
The Cardinals D was also fantastic.
and the
Yes.
Patriots D as well.
Yep, absolutely. Let's move on.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
Is this even a merciful section of the show? I mean, is it worth mentioning these guys? Because this is bringing back playoff memory problems for people, myself included. I mean, Aaron Rodgers did not have a fantasy playoff-worthy day.
No way.
That's brutal.
And next week he plays against the
Brutal.
Cardinals. So the Cardinals, high-scoring offense. You're going to have to throw the ball, but good defense. What do you expect? I mean, you're going to start Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah, but 22 for 204 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not going to get it done.
So what about the guy who's started Rodgers and had that game, and then Kirk Cousins sat there on his bench and had a monster game going into next week? Scared. Because they play the Eagles, who have
Yeah.
given up a lot of yards through the air
Yeah, they
on
are.
Saturday night.
Oh, man. Maybe. And that's a big switch for me because normally for an Aaron Rodgers, it's you start him every week because it's probability.
Do you guys remember last year in the playoffs? What took place?
You gotta be a little more specific.
Who killed people in the playoffs last year at
Andrew
the
Luck.
quarterback position?
Andrew Luck.
Andrew
yeah.
Luck did. He dominated the
It's-
regular
and-
season, and he killed people in the playoffs.
And Peyton Manning did as well.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean, again, we saw Big Ben this week. The justification could have been there for Big Ben. He had the week before, I think he had no touchdown passes.
Right. He still had yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
the argument. This is that same argument. I think you start Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, the
it's-
Cardinals got gashed a little bit by Bradford at times last night. I think you know the Packers are playing for the division still. I probably start Aaron Rodgers.
At this point, I would still start Rodgers.
And
as
you
well.
obviously got fantasy kicked in the pants by Marcus Mariota this week
Yeah.
because
Got
of
hurt.
the injury. So running back wise, Buck Allen, terrible, worst
Got pulled after a
Yeah,
fumble.
he fumbled and he got benched. Ha!
second week in a row though.
Yeah, but
I would absolutely have pulled him. They can't keep doing that. He destroyed the entire game.
yeah, I completely disagree with that logic.
You always do. DeMarco Murray, 2 for 3.
Whew. He was not not a member of the Eagles last night.
No, it took him a very, very long time to even get in and get those 2 carries. I believe the reading in the tea leaves are DeMarco Murray is not long for the Philadelphia Eagles, despite them owing him a lot of money.
Chris Polk, terrible game. If you started him thinking he was the guy in Houston, as soon as the news Alfred Blue is going to be in the mix, those guys went off my list, Chris Polk and Jonathan Grimes. Fozzie Whitaker, a lot of talk about him getting a start.
And he didn't even start.
Didn't do much. Cameron Artis-Payne was the guy there. What do you think about Artis-Payne moving forward? We didn't mention him because he wasn't like a fantasy stud, but he needs to be talked about, and he will be tomorrow for sure. But
yeah, he was the guy there that is, to me, if Jonathan Stewart's out next week, Cameron Artis-Payne was the guy that got the most involved, the most used. And while he didn't start the game because they gave that start to the veteran in Tolbert, I would expect next week him to get more usage than he did this week. But that's all dependent on Jonathan Stewart's health, and Jay Stu could be back.
the Barbershop Quartet of Sadness, Eddie Lacy, Lamar Miller, LaShawn McCoy, and Chris Ivory.
We stink.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys were coming in with
Mr.
me.
Sadman.
We stink.
I was depressed. If you were, if I was a McCoy killed me in one league. Lamar Miller was terrible.
Terrible. Such a great matchup against an awful run D, and he gets 9 carries, which I made a bet that he would get more than 15. I believe they would have given them the ball more, but you know, you can't even complain about that because his 9 carries, he got 12 yards. He is one of the most frustrating guys to own because you know, there's a couple of guys out there, Deshaun Jackson and Allen Robinson and a Lamar Miller, where if you want these guys' big blow-up game, you have to start them. You just can't predict when they're going to blow up, but they have the potential to have a super high ceiling game. I mean, we've seen 2 40-point games out of Lamar Miller this year, and so this next week, I think
Lamar Miller at the Colts. You play him?
Yeah, I play
him.
At
home against the Colts.
I play him against the Colts, and I don't feel good about it.
Let's go through those other guys then. Eddie Lacy against the Cardinals. Do you play him?
No way.
Oh, no.
He ran poorly. He got 11 carries and ran poor with them, and now is going up against the Cardinals. I don't see it.
What about we already talked about Ivory. What about McCoy?
That's more of a injury.
Just injury monitor the injury.
Yeah, if he plays, I will play him. And for Lamar Miller,
what if he's out, by the way?
If Shady McCoy is out?
Who do you start?
I still think it's Carlos Williams.
You saw another 60-yard run from Gillisley.
Gillisley, is that it?
I believe so.
We're
not good at names.
We'll call him the G-Man. How about that?
Right.
Yeah, I would. You have to assume that it's still Carlos Williams. That Carlos Williams will be back to full health next week, and if he's healthy, I think he's the guy who gets the carries.
But what we've seen when guys like Gillisley come on strong is that now they are going to split those reps with the backup guys. You've seen that with Charkandrick West and Ware. Once Ware showed like, oh, we have a really legit option behind him, I don't have to put everything on West. And you could see that happen. I don't think, early in the year when Carlos Williams was healthy and LaShawn McCoy went down, it was like, oh, Carlos is a great play. I'm not quite as happy about Carlos because of what's happened with the other running backs.
Gillisley was 4 for 81 and
he had
a touchdown.
He had that huge run.
Yeah, but 2 weeks in a row he's had a huge run.
Yeah,
and definitely contributed.
And that's very fair. It's a matter to me of what are the Bills playing for? Are they trying? Do they want to see what they have in Carlos Williams? Like, and I know that they know he's a good player, but it's okay. Let's give him a couple games of him being the feature back. Let's see what he can do.
All right, wide receivers. We talked about AJ Green. He went out. He killed fantasy owners 1 for 37. Danny Amendola did as well. T.Y. Hilton had a very bad game, 3 for 29. Larry Fitzgerald, 3 for 43. Alan Hearns, 2 for 44. Ouch.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That's some bad beats on guys. Larry Fitzgerald, especially 3 for 43, was not what I was expecting.
One of the things we didn't talk about in all of our David Johnson talk was how much David Johnson hurt the value of the wide receiving core. Because Carson Palmer, Michael Floyd, he led the Cardinals in receiving yards, but he didn't really have a great game because
who should have led them in receiving yards?
John freaking Brown.
Man, John Brown, catch the ball.
If you're a John Brown owner, you about pulled your hair all the way out of your head because
you're bald.
3 drops.
Yeah,
one certain touchdown.
The first play of the game was a super long slant where he had everybody beat, and it's a guaranteed touchdown. And I've never seen a better placed ball. the ball went through the arms like he didn't close his arms.
Yeah.
It was absurd.
Perfect post.
At least he got a touchdown later. So you're unhappy, but you're not. I think the Larry Fitzgerald owner is probably more upset than the John Brown owner.
It was a matter of David Johnson destroying them.
All right, so Alan Hearns next week. Do you start him against the Saints?
I would.
Yeah, I would too.
What about T.Y. Hilton next week against the Dolphins?
Who's the quarterback?
Assume Hasselbeck.
What are they?
It goes back and forth. I mean, we've seen it for weeks now where you can't really trust it between T.Y. Hilton and Moncrief. Moncrief got the touchdown this last game, and Moncrief's had a couple good games with Hasselbeck, and he's had terrible games. And T.Y. Hilton's had a couple of really good games, and he's had terrible games. So you can't trust which one of those guys you're going to start, but Hasselbeck is not going to do enough to get both of those guys good games. So you're
Is there any chance that Andrew Luck is back
Yes,
next week?
I believe there is. But if he's back, does that raise Hilton for you then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if he's back, I have to assume that he is fully healthy because I don't think the Colts are going to screw around with their franchise quarterback with a lacerated kidney and an internal body organ injury. You got to have him be ready to go. So if he's ready to go, even though Luck was not the Andrew Luck of last year, we still saw him have some bigger games.
All right, let's go ahead and answer a couple mailbag questions.
Mailbag.
All right, if you have a question for us this upcoming championship week, we certainly want to hear that question. Go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click on the Submit a Question button. You can also check us out on Twitter at the FFBallers or call our voicemail question line 302-464-TFFB. We'll be answering them all week, trying to get you ready for your fantasy playoffs or your third place matchups.
Yeah.
There's money on the line, so in many of your leagues. So send us your questions. Jared in Philly wants to know. He says he's down 17 going into tonight's game, Monday Night Football game. He's got Calvin or Hightower for his flex. Doesn't know who to play for upside as Calvin was awful last week and Hightower was huge with the 28 carries. Says thanks for the show. What do you do if you are Jared in Philadelphia?
I would start Calvin Johnson. I think Calvin Johnson has a better history. You've got one guy here who's a Hall of Fame guy going up against a bad defense, or at least a defense that can be scored on multiple times. That's who I would go with. But I see the difficulty of the question. It sounds ridiculous. You know, if we were talking about this 5 weeks ago, that'd be absurd. But it's a legit question. What do you guys think?
I would still go with Calvin. You have to make up 17 points in a standard league for Hightower. I mean, you need 100 yards and a score at the very least for Hightower to come close to that. So I would go with Calvin.
I tend to agree, especially, depending on – for Hightower to get that, the game flow has to go perfectly right for him. For Calvin to get that, it might take a couple big plays, and that can happen later in the game even if things aren't going right. So very tough decision. And if you're just asking me who's the safer play in terms of total points, it's probably Hightower right now with the carry count, but that doesn't mean he hits 17. So I think Calvin's your better upside. I agree with these guys. All right, Rob in Long Island has the same question we discussed earlier. Should I start Chris Ivory or Bilal Powell against the Patriots next week? He's in a half-point PPR league. I'd love to hear Mike's opinion on this because Jason and I kind of debated that. Ivory gets the volume. We said they about the same in touches this past week, but Powell was much better. I mean, just your eyeballs told you Powell was much better. So what would you do if you were in his situation? He's in trying to get to the title.
So I'm pulling up the
or
number.
Win the title.
So this is what Ivory did last time against the Patriots. He was 17 for 41, that's not great rushing stats. He was 2 for 12 with a touchdown through the air, but I believe that was in the midst of the Bilal Powell injury. So Ivory was getting all those the passing down snaps. At this point, Edelman could be back. That's a situation to monitor because that's a big bump for the Patriots offense. If the Patriots are down Edelman and Amendola, I might be inclined to go with Ivory because I think that's for how great Tom Brady and Gronk are. When he's that limited on weapons, the Patriots offense doesn't move nearly as well, and the Jets are still a pretty solid defense. If he gets Edelman back, I would go with Powell at this point. You got to stay in the flames with a guy who is producing at a high level.
Yeah, Powell was out that game, the last game against New England. So that's why Chris Ivory got 17 carries. I will say this: the last 3 weeks in a half-point scoring the way he has, Powell has 21.4, 17, and 18, and I don't expect them to be up. So that would be my argument for Powell.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I think if you ask me who's got the biggest upside in terms of total points, it's actually Powell. So if you need that, I agree with you on that. That is the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. Waiver wire chatter, some offense and defense plays you can do in terms of keeping guys away from your championship opponent. Hopefully you're in that final game. Hopefully you're still alive, David Johnson. My goodness, the Twitter feed blew up.
It was fantastic.
It was absolutely outstanding.
And for just an update of what are the footballers doing this week.
What are they doing this week?
So we will not be having a show on Thursday or Friday because it is Christmas Eve and Christmas, and we want to celebrate those days with our family. However, we have not forgotten the Foot Clan. So Wednesday, return of the Megalodon.
Yes, the episode you've been waiting for since a few weeks ago
Since
when you got the last
Thanksgiving.
one.
This time, it's personal.
Right. And this is playoff time. Playoff Megalodon. This is not a normal version. More spines.
So Tuesday night, I will be going to sleep at 7 p.m. and waking up just
You know what?
before the show.
We have to record the Patreon mailbag show that day as well.
Yeah, I know.
So we've got the Megalodon show and we've got the Patreon mailbag show on jointhefoot.com. So
I remember because I'm still exhausted
your
from the
Wheaties.
last time we did it.
eat your Wheaties and not the big Cinnabons you ate when you came into the studio this morning.
Don't tell me how to live, Andy.
I blame your wife.
Any of the when Jason said that Stevie Johnson signed with the Patriots, I blame the Cinnabon.
Yep.
So-
Well blamed.
So, all right, that's it for today. Congratulations to everybody who got through, and if not, you're with me. You lost your matchup, but you can hang with us. Keeper Leagues, Dynasty Leagues, and get ready for next season. We'll be here all year long.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.